Jaya Radhamadhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radhamadhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janalava Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Janalava Girivaradhari Yashodandana Prachatyana Ranjana Yashodandana Prachatyana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Mishpat Paramahansa Paravrajacharya Tattara Shri Shrimadis Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Samlaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Nitai Gaura Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. So welcome everyone to Bhagavad Gita class. This is the first time I've given a Bhagavad Gita class at Vrindavan. I feel very honored. The chapter is the perfection of renunciation. And we're going to read verse number 54, chapter 18. Please repeat after me. Brahma Buddha Prasanatma Na Shochate Na Kankshati Sama Sarveshu Bhuteshu Mad Bhakting Labhate Param Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma Na Shokvate Na Kankshate Samah Sarveshu Bhuteshu Mad Bhakting Labhate Param Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma Na Shochate Na Kankshati Samah Sarveshu Bhuteshu Mad Bhakting Labhate Param. Brahmabhuta Prasannatma Prasochati Nakangshati Samasarveshu Bhuteshu Madbhaktim Labhate Param Brahmabhuta Prasannatma Shochate Nakangshati Samasarveshu Bhuteshu Madbhaktim Labhate Param Brahmabhuta Prasannatma Shochate Nakangshati Samasarveshu Bhuteshu Madbhaktim Labhate Param Brahmabhuta Prasannatma Shochate Nakangshati Samasarveshu Bhuteshu Madbhaktim Labhate Param Brahmabhuta Prasannatma Shochate Nakangshati Samasarveshu Bhuteshu Madbhaktim Labhate Param. Okay, word for word. Brahma Bhutaha, being one with the Absolute. Prasanna Atma, fully joyful. Na, never. Shochate, laments. Na, never. Kankshate, desires. Samaha, equally disposed. Sarveshu, to all. Bhuteshu, living entities. Madbhaktim, my devotional service. Labhate, gains. Param, transcendental. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. One who is thus transcendentally situated at once realizes the Supreme Brahman and becomes fully joyful. He never laments or desires to have anything. He is equally disposed toward every living entity. In that state, he attains pure devotional service unto me. Please repeat. One who is thus transcendentally situated at once realizes the Supreme Brahman and becomes fully joyful. He never laments or desires to have anything. He is equally disposed toward every living entity. In that state, he attains pure devotional service unto me. Purport. To the impersonalist, achieving the Brahma Bhuta stage, becoming one with the Absolute, is the last word. But for the personalist, a pure devotee, one has to go still further to become engaged in pure devotional service. This means that one who is engaged in pure devotional service to the Supreme Lord is already in the state of liberation called Brahma Bhuta, oneness with the Absolute. Without being one with the Supreme, the Absolute, one cannot render service unto him. In the Absolute conception, there is no difference between the served and the servitor. Yet the distinction is there in a higher spiritual sense. In the material concept of life, when one works for sense gratification, there is misery. But in the Absolute world, when one is engaged in pure devotional service, there is no misery. The devotee in Krishna consciousness has nothing for which to lament or desire. Since God is full, a living entity who is engaged in God's service in Krishna consciousness becomes also full in himself. He is just like a river cleansed of all dirty water. Because a pure devotee has no thought other than Krishna, he is naturally always joyful. He does not lament for any material loss or aspire for gain, because he is full in the service of the Lord. He has no desire for material enjoyment, because he knows that every living entity is a fragmental part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, and therefore eternally a servant. He does not see in the material world someone as higher and someone as lower. Higher and lower positions are ephemeral, and a devotee has nothing to do with ephemeral appearances or disappearances. For him, stone and gold are of equal value. This is the Brahma Bhuta stage, and this stage is attained very easily by the pure devotee. In that stage of existence, the idea of becoming one with the Supreme Brahman and annihilating one's individuality becomes hellish. The idea of attaining the heavenly kingdom becomes phantasmagoria, and the senses are like serpents whose poisoned teeth are broken. As there is no fear of a serpent with broken teeth, there is no fear from the senses when they are automatically controlled. The world is miserable for the materially infected person, but for a devotee, the entire world is as good as Vaikuntha, or the spiritual sky. The highest personality in this material universe is no more significant than an ant for a devotee. Such a stage can be achieved by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, who preached pure devotional service in this age. Okay, verse again. Rama Buddha Prasanatma Nasochati Nakangshati Samasarveshu Bhuteshu Madbhaktim Labhate Param. One who is thus transcendently situated at once realizes the Supreme Brahman and becomes fully joyful. He never laments or desires to have anything. He is equally disposed toward every living entity. In that state, he attains pure devotional service unto me. Om Ajnanatimarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamaya Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagra Jata Sagana Raganathan Vitang Stang Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Harjana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pada Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitangscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vansha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So my name is Govinda Das. I live near Bhaktivedanta Manor, which is near just north of London. And I'm a Grihasta. I live about 8 miles from the manor, and I come quite regularly. I like to do Harinam Sankirtan. It's my main service. I do a little bit of Pujari work, but it's mainly backup service. At the Bhaktivedanta Manor, we have Radha Krishna, well, it's Radha Gokulan and the deities. We have Sita, Ram, Lakshman, Hanuman deities. And during the morning, when they're being dressed, someone needs to go to the rooms to get the outfits. They need to cut up some fruit for the offering. They need to change the backdrop. They need to do the washing for the deity towels, etc. So that requires a lot of activities. So that's what's known as backup service. And I like to do that. I'm not so comfortable about dressing. I think I'm in a little bit in the mode of passion. And I don't think I would give the amount of time and detail to the sort of aesthetic side. I'm quite passionate. I like to work hard, but in a sort of more mechanical way than to stop. And I feel a bit uncomfortable dressing the deities, just to let you know what kind of person I am. Yeah. So this chapter is called Perfection of Renunciation. And Krishna is telling Arjuna how to become renounced. Now, in this verse, we see there's various phrases that indicate renunciation. One is nashochate. Someone who's renounced does not lament. Nakankshate. They do not desire. And they are prasanna atma. They're very peaceful. Now, Prabhupada, of course, we know in Prabhupada's purports, he often likes to take us away from the impersonal concept as being all in all. That is one of the main missions of Srila Prabhupada. It's one of the main statements in many of his purports, and this is no exception, because he says at the beginning, to the impersonalist, achieving the Brahma Buddha stage, becoming one with the Absolute is the last word. But, this is the point, but for the personalist or pure devotee, one has to go still further to become engaged in devotional service. This verse, it is not an indication of karma yoga. It is more an indication of jnana yoga for those who are inclined for jnana yoga. And this is actually the verdict of Lord Chaitanya. Because when Ramananda Roy was asked, we're going to Madhya Lila chapter 8, one of the most famous chapters of the whole of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, the conversation between Ramananda Roy and Lord Chaitanya. In that conversation, Lord Chaitanya begins by asking, what is the ultimate goal of life? Now, in this conversation, Ramananda Roy is like the cloud. The cloud takes water from the ocean and rains it, and it falls back on the ocean. And according to certain constellations, sometimes when rain falls on the ocean, it becomes jewels. This is a very esoteric, little-known science. I've never experienced it. Sometimes people say wonderful things happen, like sometimes they say frogs or crabs or something fall from the sky. There's all these different pastimes. I'm not sure how to explain them. Anyway, according to a certain constellation, when the rain falls at a certain time, the ocean becomes jewels. So Lord Chaitanya is like the ocean. He empowers Ramananda Roy to speak. And then when Ramananda Roy speaks, it actually edifies even the Lord himself. So even though he's the source of the knowledge, when he hears it from Ramananda Roy, he becomes even more ornamented and ecstatic. Sancharya Ramabhida Bhakti Mega Gorabji retire Amunasvati Unais Touch Gyatva Ratnalayatam Prayati. I'm missing one line. Svabhakti Siddhanta Chayamritani. That Ramananda Roy, he's giving the Siddhanta to the ocean of Gaurabdi. And by doing so, Ratna Alayata, the ocean becomes like full of jewels. So this is a wonderful conversation. So in that conversation, Ramananda Roy begins by talking varnashram. Varnashram system is the wonderful way to work, which harmonizes with spirituality. Everyone here know about the varnashram system? You're all one or two. Varnashram system means you work according to your natural propensity. For example, there are 4 varnas: Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. Some people are very interested in making money or farming. They're the Vaishyas. Some are interested in administration and protecting military. That's the Kshatriyas. Some are into knowledge. That's the Brahmanas. And some just prefer to serve others. They are the Shudras. This is known as the Varna system. We all have a natural tendency. At school, people tend to try and make everyone into a Brahmana. That's why they have a push to get as many people as possible to university. But some people, they find school very painful because they're not cut out for that. But then when they get a trade later on, they're very happy. I had someone, I remember I was doing a house conversion, and the person working, he said, I really hated school, I had very bad marks, but my uncle taught me carpentry. And now he's very happy because he makes stairs and does all this kind of work around houses. So he found his trade, he found some shelter. And that's not so understood in today's schools, because people just want everyone to become educated in the same way rather than take up a trade earlier on. Anyway, so varnashram system is very beautiful because it helps one become peaceful. And without peace, how can one focus on Krishna? So the varnashram system is geared. Now, I mentioned varnas. Ashram means brahmachari life, then grihastha, which means married, then vanaprastha, becoming detached, and then sannyas. So these systems, we fit into one of these blocks, and this changes with time. We may be brahmachari for a while, then we may move to grihastha. Generally, if one is a Shudra, there's nothing beyond grihastha. But Shudra, there's one varna, there's one ashram, and that's grihastha. But if for the higher castes, they're twice born, they go through brahmacharya. And only the Brahmins will end up taking sannyas. So it's different for different groups. But when Ramananda Roy, he said, this varnashram system, Mahaprabhu said, Eho Bhashya, this is external, carry on. And he quoted Bhagavad Gita, Yat karosi, yat atnasi, yat jujosi dadasita, yat tapasyasi kantya, tat kurushva madarpanam. Whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer, whatever you give away, do all these things as an offering to me, whatever austerities you perform. This was an improved answer because you're focusing on devotional service. But that itself is known as karma mishra bhakti, because what it is, it's engaging in activities for the pleasure of Krishna. But the focus is on activities. So we act a certain way because we have a certain inclination, and we have a certain fruit of desire, and we purify by offering that fruit to Krishna. And depending on our purity, we'll offer a little or a lot. That's called karma yoga. And now going back to what I said about 5 minutes ago, this verse we're discussing today is not karma yoga, it is more jnana yoga, because jnana, actually the goal of the jnani is kaivalya, or merging with the Supreme. Here the phrase is used as Brahma Bhuta. So as soon as you talk about Brahma Bhuta, then the jnanis get very interested. Now the reason I'm talking about this is when I first read the pastime of Team Ramananda Roy and Lord Chaitanya, I was surprised because Mahaprabhu says, or Prabhupada in the purport says, this is Jnana Mishra Bhakti, as in it is devotional service, but it's not pure because it's mixed with Jnana. And I looked at the verse and I couldn't see it. And then where's the Jnana here? First of all, the last line, Mad Bhaktim Labhate Param, he attains devotional service to me. That's not Jnana, that's devotion. Brahma Bhuta stage, jnanis aspire for that, but devotees also, as Prabhupada says in the purport, they also attain this Brahma Bhuta stage. So where is the jnana in it? So I asked a scholarly friend, and he told me, you have to see things in context. And he told me that this verse is very dear, very special to the jnanis. This is one of the verses that they focus on. So within that context, Mahaprabhu is saying, don't go down that path. By quoting that verse, you may be implying that you have some desire for this jnana. Because what's the difference between karmis, jnanis? Karmis, they desire enjoyment in the heavenly planets. Jnanis, they desire merging. They have actually a higher goal. So that's why Mahaprabhu calls it Jnana Mishra Bhakti. And Ramananda Roy, he then goes on, he comes to the platform where, he comes to a verse from the 10th canto where Mahaprabhu finally says, yes, this is okay. But anything before that, he said this is external. Whether he's quoting varnashrama or Yad Karosi Yadashnasi, which is Karma Yoga, or this verse, or Sarvadharma Prityaja, all that was external. Of course, we wonder, why is Sarvadharma Prityaja verse external? That is like, for many, that's the main key verse of the Bhagavad Gita, which is the pure theistic science. But there's something missing. It's very nebulous. There's not an explanation of what that means. But when Ramananda Roy speaks a verse from the 10th canto, let's try to remember the verse now. Where does it go? Jnane prayasam vidapasya namanta eva jivanti sanmukaritam bhavati avartam stane stita shrutikatam tanuvan manobya ye prayaso jitatito pyaisi taistrilokyam. One should just remain in one's position, stane stitaha, which means whatever varna, whatever ashram, just stay there, wherever you're comfortable, and engage in hearing the pastimes of the Lord. And if we do that, we will actually conquer the Lord. So when Ramananda Roy said that, finally Mahaprabhu was happy. Yes, this is okay. He said, Eho hoya, means it's okay. Later on, he says, Eho Uttama. But in order to get to that platform, Ramananda Roy had to speak about Vatsalya Ras, started getting into the intimate devotional service. Anything with Vatsalya Ras, even when Ramananda Roy spoke on Shantaras and Dasyaras, it was never, he didn't get the full approval. Only when he spoke on Vatsalya Ras, Itam Sakam Brahma Sukhan Vukja, Vayashritanam Naradarakina, can't remember the rest now. Krita Punya Punjaha. It's a verse about how the cowherd boys, they must have performed so much spiritual punya in order that they can be playing with Krishna. As soon as we got to this platform of intimacy, then Mahaprabhu says, Eho Uttama. And then Ramananda Roy goes on to explain the conjugal ras between Radha and Krishna and the gopis and all the pastimes. All that is Uttama. So coming back to today's verse, this is, as I mentioned, it has this jnani feel to it, but actually, if we're pure devotees, then we'll see it as pure devotional service and nothing else. So there's an interesting statement. You may have noticed it. Without being one with the Supreme, the Absolute, one cannot render service unto him. So I mentioned at the beginning of the class, I said that Prabhupada was very careful that we're not Mayavadis, we don't try and merge. Therefore, it's an interesting statement for him to say, we have to become one with the Supreme. Isn't that surprising? For those who know Prabhupada's teachings well, you'll know that Prabhupada is always saying, we cannot merge, it's not real merging, do not try and merge, this is spiritual suicide. But here he's saying, unless one becomes one with the Supreme, one cannot render service to the Supreme. So what does that mean? And I'll offer you, does anyone have any ideas what that might mean? What I'm going to do is I'm going to take you to another purport. It's actually chapter 14, I think it's text number 29. And this is it's a similar verse, but it's almost contradictory. Mamcha yo vyabhicharine bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatitchaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpati. If one engages in unfailing devotional service, one will transcend the modes of nature and come to the Brahma Bhuta platform. The last line, Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpati, we should understand this is the same as Brahma Bhuta platform. Now, first of all, this is interesting because it's a contradiction, apparent contradiction. In that verse I've just quoted, it says, if you are in the modes of nature and you practice devotional service, you'll come to the Brahma Bhuta platform. But today's verse is saying something opposite. It's saying you can't do devotional service, or it says to attain devotional service, you first of all have to come to the Brahma Buddha platform. So which is it? Is it that devotional service brings us to the Brahma Buddha platform? Or is it that when we attain the Brahma Buddha platform, then we can engage in devotional service? And why is it saying both? Anyone got any ideas? Okay, the answer's it's quite simple. There's different types of devotional service. There's devotional service within the modes of material nature, and then there's pure devotional service beyond the modes. So in the 14th chapter, what it's really saying is if you're under the modes of material nature, you practice devotional service, you'll come beyond the modes of material nature. And what today's verse is saying is taking it further. It's saying if you've gone beyond the modes of material nature, then you can engage in devotional service, but it's devotional service proper, it's pure devotional service. That devotional service where one is one with the Supreme. Now I'm going to read you a little bit of the purport to the chapter 14, verse 29, which is 2026. Thank you so much. So this is, it sheds light on this statement. Without becoming one with the Supreme, one cannot render service unto the Supreme. So listen to this. If one is not situated in the same transcendental position with the Lord, one cannot serve the Supreme Lord. To be a personal assistant to a king, one must acquire the qualifications. Thus, the qualification to become Brahman or freed from all material contamination. It is said in the Vedic literature, Brahmaiva san Brahmarpyat yeti. One can attain the Supreme Brahman by becoming Brahman. This means that one must qualitatively become one with Brahman. By attainment of Brahman, one does not lose his eternal Brahman identity as an individual soul. So this is, if you now think of this helps to understand what it means to become one with the Supreme. It means we become Brahman, but then we are Anu Brahman, Krishna's Vibhu Brahman, and we're always just eternally separate. And without that separateness, there cannot be love. Without love, there's no prema. Prema is the goal of life. Okay? So Prabhupada gives the analogy, and it's very appropriate in India. If you look at a parrot, may fly into the tree, green parrot in the green tree, the parrot disappears. That doesn't mean the parrot has disappeared altogether. Parrot is still the parrot, and it can fly off, keep its identity. Okay? So that's the meaning of that. And Prabhupada would often say, if you want to see the Supreme pure, then you have to become pure. Because sometimes when Prabhupada was preaching, he was challenged. People would say, show me God. I think let's put the Swami on the spot. Show me God. Can you show me God? And Prabhupada would say, you have to have the eyes to see God. You have to become pure. I have the process by which you can become pure and you can see God. But it's not a cheap thing. You can't just click your fingers and say, Krishna or God, show yourself to me, then I will believe in you. And if you do not show, I will not believe in you. If you want to cheat, you'll be cheated. And anyone who thinks this way, they're cheated out of the greatest wealth. And the analogy is given also in the Chaitanya Charitamrita of an astrologer goes to a poor man and says, don't you know, your father is very, very rich and he's left some treasure. And I will tell you where it is. So we're like the son of the rich man, and we're very poor because we've forgotten. But if we're told about Krishna and how we are eternal servants of Krishna, then suddenly we regain our wealth. And when Mahaprabhu asked Ramananda Roy, what is the greatest wealth? He said it's attaining Radha and Krishna, the greatest wealth. Now, let us go to the end of this purport. And there's the last few sentences, they're actually describing a verse by Prabodhananda Saraswati. Prabhupada says, in that stage, he's referring to Brahma Buddha stage, in that stage of existence, The idea of becoming one with the Supreme Brahman and annihilating one's individuality becomes hellish. So that's Kaivalyam Narakayati. Famous verse by Prabodhananda Saraswati begins Kaivalyam Narakayati. And Kaivalya means the stage of merging. Naraka means hell. Ayati means like. So what's been said here is, actually the last line is Yat Karunya Kataksha Vaivabhavatam Tam Gaurameva Stumaha. We begin by offering our obeisances to Gaura, who is Radha Krishna combined, by whose sidelong merciful glance our whole existence is transformed. And how is it transformed? See, in the last sentence of this purport, such a stage can be achieved by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. So that is referring to Yat Karunya Kataksha Vaibhavatam. The sidelong merciful glance of Lord Chaitanya, that is his mercy. So this verse by Prabodhananda Saraswati is saying that if we get that merciful sidelong glance of Gaura, then the wonderful, well, previously wonderful stage of Brahmabhuta, which is extremely blissful, one is eternal, one has transcended all misery, it's something that the Gyanis strive for. That high platform, which is higher even than the highest form of enjoyment that Indra, the king of heaven, enjoys, is higher even than that. That becomes like hell. So that means devotees are attaining something so sublime, so deep, so pure, so attractive, so addictive, that it makes anything else hellish in comparison. Now, Kaivalyam Narakayati. Then the next part, Tridasha Pur Akasha Pushpayati. So Tridasa means the heavenly planets, and they become Akasha Pushpayati, like flowers in the sky, which is another way of saying something that does not exist. It's like saying the peacock's eggs or the horse's eggs. There's all these phrases. Something that's impossible, or like unicorn's horn. I mean, some people believe in unicorns, so I'm not sure that's a good example. Anyway, Akasha Pushpayati means flowers in the sky, means something that's just an illusion. So what that's saying is this heavenly enjoyment that all the karmis, elevationists, are striving for, that enjoyment becomes ephemeral, it becomes nothing, it becomes insignificant, because one has attained a wealth on a higher level, which is Krishna Prema. You see? So Lord Mahaprabhu glances, and then all your desires for heavenly enjoyment, they all get destroyed because you're on a higher platform. In the next line, Durdantendriya Kala Sarpa Patale Pratkata Dung Strayati. The senses, we're all struggling with the senses. Yeah? Mamai Vangsha Jiva Bhuta, was it? No. Mana Sastani Karshani, Prakriti Stani Kashta. That we're struggling with the six senses, which include the mind. So this is a struggle going on. But then Rupa Goswami, he says, Cheta Prangana Sangami Vijayati Sarvendriyanam Kritam. When we chant Hare Krishna mantra, then all the senses become pacified, and it's like No Jane Janita Kyagbi Amrita Krishneti Varna Dvayi. One comes to the platform of understanding that there is unlimited nectar in the words Krishna. Just these words Krishna, they conquer the senses. So you can conquer the senses through the holy name, you can conquer the senses through the merciful glance of Lord Chaitanya. But this is, the analogy is given, the snake. The snake is very, fearful, causes fear. But if you break the fangs of the snake, it no longer holds any fear over us. So the senses become like broken fangs. When Bhaktivinoda Thakur has this prayer, Sharirad Vijay, Jatendriya Tahikal, Jada Indriya, the dull material senses, Tahikal, they take us to hell. So our senses are actually our enemies when they're uncontrolled. And through uncontrolled senses, we perform abominable activities and we go to the hellish planets. Through uncontrolled senses, uncontrolled tongue, we may eat meat, then have to suffer the reaction. We may engage in illicit sex and suffer the reaction and so forth, engage in intoxication. So just by that merciful glance of Lord Chaitanya, the senses become pacified, one becomes peaceful. Durandendriya Kalasapari. Vishvam Purna Sakayate Vidimahendradishtakitayate. Vishvam Purna Sukayati means the whole universe becomes a very blissful place for someone who is blissful themselves. And now we should try and understand what that means, because in the Bhagavad Gita it says, Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadi Dukkha Dosha Anadarsanam. If one is in the mode of goodness, which means one sees things as it is, then one sees birth, death, old age, disease. Prabhupada would say over and over again, this place is a place of misery, pure world. Dukhalayam Shashvatam. But here it's saying something different. Vishvam Purna Sakayati. The universe is a very happy place. Why is that? It's referring to the devotee. When the devotees attain Krishna, then everything is Vaikuntha. Everywhere, everything reminds the devotee of Krishna. And Vishvam Purna Sakayati. And then the last line, last part of this, the third line, Vidi Mahendra Dishkatitayati. Vidi means Rama, Mahendra means Shiva. They're like Kita. Kita means insects. And you'll see that in this purport, it says, I'm trying to find it. The highest personality in this material universe is no more significant than an ant for a devotee. That's referring to this line, which really may say that Brahma and Shiva, their high elevated positions are like those of an insect to one who has attained pure devotional service. You see? So for your homework, you should go and try and find this sloka. You have the database, you can type in Prabodhananda Saraswati, and you can type in snake or fangs, broken fangs, and you'll find it coming up. And Prabhupada quotes this verse a lot, and it's very beautiful. And it shows us the mercy, shows us how our whole existence will change if we just get the merciful glance of Lord Chaitanya. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So I've left some time if you have any comments or questions. We've all listened very patiently. Thank you. Akasha means the sky, and Pushpa means flowers. So it's referring to flowers in the sky means, well, there aren't any flowers in the sky. So I say it's what is described as phantasmagoria in this particular purport. So, you know, it's, if you know the Kevalashtakam, so there's the second verse, Abrama stamba paryantam sarvamaya mayam jagat satyam satyam puna satyam harinama eva kevalam. From Abrama stamba paryantam, from Lord Brahma, the highest creature, down to the blade of grass, sarva maya mayam, it's all maya, it's all just an illusion. So if that's illusion, what is truth? Satyam satyam puna satyam harinam eva kevalam. The holy name is truth. So here's I speak from experience, and a lot of devotees have the same experience. When we see this world as a little bit too real, it's not real. When we get too absorbed in it, we become obsessed trying to solve the problems of this world. We will even cut back on our devotional service in order to make arrangements to make the world the way we want it. And no one's ever succeeded in doing that, because the world is designed to frustrate. But for a pure devotee, it doesn't mean the problems disappear. The problems may disappear because Krishna he can just make things easy for a devotee. But the perspective changes. You see, a problem only exists. There's two things you can do. You can either solve the problem, or you can deny its significance. If you see a problem as insignificant, then you've not solved it. You've just recategorized it as insignificant. So if we chant the holy names then we'll come to realization. Satyam punah satyam harinami vakevalam. This is the only truth. And if that becomes our existence, our whole existence, our truth, then all the problems become illusory. They're not real. They're just a dream. So then when you wake up from a dream, I've had this experience so many times, you probably have as well. If you're having a bad dream, something bad's happened, when you wake up and suddenly you realize it was a dream, you're like, oh, phew. Oh my God, oh, I thought if that had been real, that would have been really bad. So then, but it's the same if we chant the holy names, we wake up, and then it's like, well, all these problems aren't really happening. They're not actually so insignificant after all. So that's the platform that we want to attain. Now, I've got a friend, you may know him, his name's Parashuram, and he does food for all, food distribution. Where there's earthquakes, he'll go to that country and distribute food. He regularly goes to Ukraine, distributes food on the front lines. And he's an example of someone who just doesn't accept those problems. He always has faith in Krishna. And so many times he's found himself in tricky situations, but Krishna always arranges things for him. And his van breaks down, someone donates a new van. It's all divine arrangement. Sometimes in London they have, there's the rule in London is still the same everywhere. If you have an empty building, the insurance premiums are very high. So in central London, when big offices become vacant, the owner wants to get someone in to make sure that the insurance premiums are low. So Parashuram, he has a Food for All project. He's quite well known in London amongst the property developers. So when there's a vacant property, they sometimes ask him, would you like to use this? So he's distributing food, and then they just give him an office. Or sometimes it's like a warehouse, or it's like the whole ground floor of an apartment store or something. And he can just bring all his stuff in. He can store things. Some places he can cook, other times he can't. But anyway, he has all these facilities, and it's good for them because they get lower insurance premiums, and then they do devotional service unknowingly. So it's really nice. So he just lives on the platform of just Krishna arranges things. He doesn't strategize these things. Just some things come up, and it always works out. So this is a lovely way to be. It's like just depend on Krishna. But we're not on that platform, most of us. Therefore, we calculate. And then we have these plans. I'm going to get this job. I'm going to earn this living. I'm going to buy this house. I'm going to do this. And sometimes it works out if Krishna wants it to. But other times it doesn't, and we get frustrated. But we want to come to a platform where we just more and more engage in devotional service and less engage in all that endeavor. And Prabhupada's father is a good example of that. Prabhupada would say he spent so much time doing puja. He had this clothes shop. He was selling cloth, and he just wasn't open a lot of the time. He didn't keep long hours because he spent 3 or 4 hours each day doing puja because he liked to do puja. I don't like to dress in the deities because I'm too passionate, but I like to cut the fruit up and get the bowls and get the outfits and do everything else like that, And then I work because I've got this fruitive mentality. So I'm kind of preaching to myself today. Hare Krishna. Anyway, it's 6 o'clock. We've got almost 6 o'clock. If anyone's got any last comments or questions, thank you very much for listening. Shall we adjourn? Okay. Grantaraj, Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna.